Alright, so here we are. We're in Adobe Photoshop. We're going to create what's called selective desaturation. That's where something stays in color in a photograph or an image, and the rest of that appears desaturated or black and white. Now, this kind of imagery utilizes the design principle referred to as emphasis. It also pertains to contrast. But one of the things I'd like you to think about is that how in your photographs or your images can you work with color and tone to be able to emphasize. Now this clearly makes things stark and high contrast and definitely lets the subject that's in color stand out, emphasizing the subject. So I've already gone ahead and done this so you can see the final result. The way I'm going to approach it, now there are a few ways to do it. The way I'd like you to be able to do it is using non-destructive editing and masking. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. I'll turn this off. This is the result. This is how I got to the result. So when I turn that off, I've got my layer here with my photograph, and what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to have my subject stay in color, but my background be black and white. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. You can use any of your favorite selection tools to start out with a selection. I prefer using the quick selection and then adjusting my selection from there. So if I come along here and start adjusting, I'm not going to spend time creating the whole entire selection and finessing it because it does take a while, and because to be able to get things like the shoelaces and whatnot, you really do need to be able to go in and fine-tune your selection. So I'm going to show you how to fine-tune your selection. As you're using these selection tools, there are ways to refine the selection, such as the refine edge up here. So if you click that, you can work with any of these tools, see what results you get. Now, what I like to do though is I like to use a mode called quick mask mode, and so that can be found in your toolbar down here, and it's also a keyboard shortcut Q that gives you a mask to work with. So if I press Q, I can go into quick mask mode, and you can see that there's an area that's become kind of covered in red, and then there's an area that I can see through. And so if we look right here, we can see that inside of my selection I can see through, and outside you can see is red. So I can actually paint and change that selection, and I'll do so by using brushes. Now when you choose a brush, you want to check and see what kind of brush you're using, because if you're trying to get something clean and crisp, you're probably going to want to use a hard edge brush. If you want something to kind of fade, you might want to use one of these softer round brushes or an airbrush. So I'll go ahead and choose a harder brush because I do want to get some clean lines. You also want to check your opacity and make sure it's at 100% if you're trying to completely block something out or let it appear through the mask. So the other thing we're going to do is that we're going to paint with black and we're going to paint with white, and you can see right here black is selected by default when I go into quick mask mode. If you look around the elbow right here, we can see there's a period piece of the elbow arm that's not selected. So I'm going to go ahead and change the size of my brush, make it a little bit bigger. You can use your bracket bars. Right bracket is larger, left bracket is smaller. So I've got black selected, and you're going to see right here if I click, I'm going to now be painting with red. I'm adding red, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to white, and I'll click these arrows or press X, and those will switch between the two. And now that I have white selected, you'll see that I can go ahead and paint and refine my selection. If I press Q and go out of my mask, I can see that the mask has changed. Alright, so I'm going to press Q and go back in there and work some more. For you, what I'd recommend is that you really need to zoom in. You really need to zoom in because there's areas that are, hair is very difficult to deal with. Some of the smaller details, shadows can be difficult to deal with. It takes time to form a good mask. So I'll press Q and go back out of there. Now, when you have a mask where your object is selected and it's selected with detail, and it's a quality selection, then you're just about ready to go ahead and finish the job. Now, right now, if I take this selection and I go over to my adjustments palette, which you'll see probably docked on your right-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out right here. I'm going to go to the black and white adjustment layer. Now, watch what happens. If I just click right now and create a black and white adjustment layer, you can see that what's become black and white is what was selected. So I'm going to step back, pressing Command Z. What I need to do is I need to inverse my selection. I need to inverse it. I want to select the opposite. There's a keyboard shortcut for that. That's Command Shift I. But I can also do so by coming up here and go to Select Inverse. Now when I've selected the inverse, what happens is, I know you don't really see anything going on here. If I move out though, you're going to see that the marquee actually is selected everything that's outside of this area, and what's inside of here is no longer selected. So now that I've got that done, now when I press my black and white adjustment layer, you'll see that everything else in the image becomes black and white. Now obviously the subject that I want to remain in color, you can see right now, is not totally in color. So since I've done that, I can still further my edit my mask further. I don't need to come back down here in Quick Mask. What I can do is come over in my layers palette, and this that you see my mouse rolling over is a representation of the mask. If I make sure that that's selected, so what I want you to see is you actually have to click on the box, and there you'll see that it kind of creates a little black border that lets you know that that's highlighted. Now that I have my mask chosen, if I choose a brush, then I can use black and white just like I did in Quick Mask to paint, to reveal, or to block with my mask. So if you look, I'm going to switch to white, and I'll just start painting. Well, actually, sorry, pardon me, I needed to stay with black on that. And I'm going to go ahead and paint, and you can see the colors coming back in. And so there we are, and you'll notice that your mask will update in real time over there. So if I was to paint something outside of the mask to bring it back in color to further demonstrate that, watch what's going to happen down to my mask when I do that. And so now I'm adding color back in, and you'll see that's reflected in the mask there. So this does take some time to get a good quality mask, but as soon as you get a good quality selection that you can use for masking, all you need to do is go into your adjustments, layers, palette, and choose the black and white adjustment. And the other thing is, when you choose the black and white adjustment, you actually have the opportunity to change how your color information is interpreted as black and white or grayscale. So you can see if I take these sliders and toggle them around, I can really change the way that that black and white is appears. And so please do take some time and adjust that to your liking to get the best visual result possible. When you're done, you want to make sure you save your work, and you want to save as a Photoshop document. If you have more than one layer, when you go to save, it will automatically prompt you to save a Photoshop document. So if I was saving this for the first time, you would see the format would automatically be Photoshop. And that's important because you're going to probably need to go back and edit your work, or you might want to make changes further down the line.